You hear it all the time, don't you? College is meant to be this uh, amazing transformational period.
Yeah, the time you supposedly find yourself, spread your wings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what happens when, well, for some students, it feels less like finding yourself and maybe more like getting lost?
That's a really interesting
And
tone.
that's precisely what we're diving into today. We're looking at an article called I'm Not Lost, Just Finding Myself. It's by Kumar B., published in Students of India,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives us this really personal account from a student named Sikta Talukdar.
Okay, so our mission here is really to unpack Sikta's story, right? To try and grasp the pressures they talk about.
Yeah, and explore what that phase feels like when, what's expected on the outside just doesn't match the reality inside.
That gap, it can be huge.
Absolutely. It's about getting past the usual student stress talk and into the real heart of this specific experience described in the article.
Right, the lived reality.
So let's start with the day-to-day. The article lays out this routine, classes, basically 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
And the feeling afterwards. It's not described as, hanging out on campus or diving into hobbies. Sikta apparently feels completely drained.
Utterly exhausted.
Yeah, so the idea of studying more or doing anything else, it just feels impossible. It's painted as this loop: college, home, exhaustion, sleep, and then repeat.
Sounds relentless.
Mm-hmm.
And the core feeling that bubbles up from this grind, according to the source, somewhere in all that, there's this unsettling feeling of losing a part of yourself.
And then there's this other layer the article brings in the future. It's not just the daily exhaustion.
Right.
It's the constant nagging pressure about what comes next. Getting a job.
Making the parents' investment pay off.
Exactly, all that weighing down on you.
The article uses a really strong image for that. It says it sits on their head like a heavy stone.
Wow, yeah. That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And what really hits home is the isolation mentioned with it. Sikta says basically no one else sees it. Not parents, not teachers. Only they know how heavy that stone feels every single day. It's a silent struggle.
That sense of, invisible pressure. It connects directly to another big theme in the article.
Yeah.
This whole scoreboard mentality.
Right. The grades, the scores.
Right. How they impact things. Sikta apparently shares this intense feeling that sometimes those numbers seem to dictate everything. Your future, your worth,
Yeah, and there's a specific example given, right, about the JE exams.
Yes. The disappointment when the percentile wasn't high enough for the college they dreamed of. The article describes it as genuinely shattering.
And it quotes Sikta directly on the aftermath. For a while, they felt, and this is a direct quote, "I'm nothing if I don't get into a good college."
Oof. That really shows how much identity can get wrapped up in academic achievement.
Definitely. But then the article seems to show a shift, like a turning point.
It does. It describes Sikta slowly and probably painfully, starting to learn that, okay, one bad score doesn't have to define your entire life.
That's a crucial realization, moving towards the idea that it's more about, well, resilience, self-belief.
Yeah, exactly. Emphasizing that your future isn't just that number on a piece of paper. It's more about how hard you're willing to push, how much you trust yourself.
Which is a much healthier perspective, but probably hard one.
No doubt. And that internal battle over definition leads into another conflict, personal dreams versus external expectations, especially from family.
Okay, so what's the clash there?
Sikta apparently doesn't just want any regular job. The dream is specific. Starting their own software business, creating something.
Ah, the entrepreneurial spark.
Right. But that's set against what the source says the parents want. Stability, security, a predictable career path.
The classic dilemma, passion versus perceived prudence.
And there's this really telling detail about past dreams becoming a pilot, martial arts. They were expensive dreams. And the quote is, middle-class realities clip your wings. It suggests sometimes those realities ground you before you even try to fly.
That adds another layer of constraint. Makes sense. So, given all this, Sikta has some messages for the adults in their life.
Yeah, directed at teachers first. It's a plea, really, to see students beyond classrooms and marks.
To see the whole person.
Exactly. To recognize they have lives, struggles, those silent battles happening outside of academics.
And for parents?
The message is maybe the most direct in the whole piece. Please stop pressurizing us.
Yeah.
Let us take that step. Find our way. Trust us.
Wow. Just trust us.
And it's quickly clarified. This isn't asking for shortcuts or an easy ride.
No, it's about needing room to breathe, right?
That's the exact phrase. Breathing space. Space to explore, maybe mess up a bit, and figure things out without that constant weight of expectation dictating every single step.
That need for autonomy is huge.
Definitely. And then on top of the internal stuff and family pressure, the article points to external judgment, comparisons. Sikta calls this the worst part.
Oh, I think many people can relate to that, the comparisons.
Totally. It quotes that classic line, "Look at the neighbor's kid, they scored so much more than you."
Ugh, yeah, that one stings.
Sikta says it just breaks your spirit.
Especially when you're trying, right? Trying hard to make them proud.
Exactly. And it still feels like it's never enough, that feeling of inadequacy, even when you're giving it your all. That's a heavy burden.
It really is. The article also mentions financial independence, or the lack of it.
Yeah, it touches on that sting, that difficulty of still having to ask parents for money. And this internal voice pops up asking, when will you be strong enough to not ask anymore?
So another layer of pressure, but this one's kind of self-imposed, driven by that desire to be independent.
Right. Amplified by the current dependence. So,
Yeah.
okay, with all this piling up the routine, scores, future worries, parents, comparisons, money, does the article mention any sources of, like, comfort or strength?
It does point to one crucial figure, the sister.
Ah, okay. A support system.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And her advice is quoted as being simple but powerful. Forget the world. Do what you love.
Nice. Cuts right through the noise.
But Sikta's also clear it's not about copying the sister's exact path.
Right, not imitation.
No. The goal is to achieve that same kind of independence she seems to have: financial independence, emotional independence.
Okay, so the sister's like a model of independence, not a path to follow blindly.
Precisely. And this leads to this really powerful yearning described in the article,
What's that?
the desire for peace. Like, if all the pressure and judgment just vanished, the fantasy is to go somewhere far, far away.
An escape?
Sort of.
Yeah.
To a place with only peace, no noise, no expectations, no pretending, just quiet.
But is it about running away for good?
No, and the article makes that clear. It's not about permanent escape. It's framed as needing a break,
Okay.
a moment to breathe, to think, to find myself again.
A pause button.
Exactly, and the hope behind wanting that pause is significant. Come back stronger, ready to build a life that feels genuinely, quote, truly mine.
So the break is actually in service of building something authentic later.
That seems to be the idea. The article sums up this core desire really simply at the end: peace, freedom, and a chance to be myself.
When you take a step back from Sikta's account here, what really stands out is how all these pressures kind of feed into each other, don't they?
Absolutely. The academic pressure, the parental hopes, those social comparisons, the financial dependence, they're all intertwined.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is how the article suggests these external forces don't just cause stress, they actively seem to, well, suffocate the space a student might need to even start figuring out who they are.
Leaving them feeling lost, not because they lack direction maybe, but because they're being pulled in too many directions by others.
That's a great way to put it. Overwhelmed by external definitions of success.
Right.
So that desire for a break, for peace and freedom, it doesn't feel like shirking responsibility. It feels more like a really fundamental need kicking in, you know?
The need for quiet.
Yeah, quiet space to just process, think, and maybe hear their own inner voice amidst all the noise. And it really highlights how vital those few anchors of support, like the sister in this story, can be when everything else feels so overwhelming.
Essential. So thinking about this perspective from Sikta, shared in that Students of India article, what does it mean for you listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of your own specific background or where you are in life,
Yeah.
have you ever felt that kind of weight, that heavy stone of expectation?
Or that pressure to fit into a mold someone else designed, that deep, almost desperate wish for just breathing room, a bit of space to figure things out your own way.
It really invites some reflection, doesn't it? Whether Sikta's experience mirrors yours exactly, or if parts of it just resonate, that feeling of navigating external demands while searching for your own footing.
Which parts of this story, this feeling of pressure versus the need for internal space, really strike a chord with you?
It's worth thinking about.
So this deep dive into Sikta's reported experience shows us, well, a journey through a routine that feels like a trap sometimes.
And a fight against being defined just by grades or how you stack up against others.
Right, and that poignant clash between personal dreams and what's expected, and underneath it all, this really deep human need.
A need for peace, for freedom, and just the chance to discover and be who you genuinely are.
The source describes this student searching for peace, freedom, a chance to be themselves. Considering that, What does it really mean to find yourself when the world seems so busy trying to define you first?
That's definitely something to mull over.